So I've decided to start vlogging and I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun because I have so much I want to share about authorship that I feel like I can't really put into a how-to video. And I thought what would be a fun and intimate way to start off this vlogging process would be to share a story that I haven't shared because it's not a how-to and it's not necessarily anything that makes a cute short YouTube video, but it's something that dramatically impacted my author career. And I think it's important to talk about. So let's talk about the dark side of authorship. So authorship, I have to start off by saying, is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I could not imagine my life without authorship. It is my full-time income. It is what I do. It is what I breathe. I eat, sleep, and dream of writing books half the time. I have trained my brain to write in my sleep to where when I wake up, I have a fully fleshed out story with edits. I'm not quite sure how it happens, but yeah, that's how I live. And it's become everything to me. And what I want to talk about is this experience that really took away from authorship and has taken a really long time to heal. And it's something that I don't see other authors really talking about. So I don't know if it's not happening or if we're all kind of on the same page of like, is this something we should talk about publicly? Like, how do we handle this? So that's gonna be why I'm talking about this and getting into it. So essentially a few years ago now, I was having a lot of theft problems with my Save the Earth series. So for those of you who don't know me, I should have started this way. My name is Bethany Stahl. I'm a full-time author, and I'm primarily known for my children's book series, Save the Earth. So it is an environmental-based series that I've written about my life. So I went to school for biology. I was planning to pursue my doctorate before I became ill with a chronic illness, and I started authorship because I was bedbound and I was unable to hold a typical 9-to-5 job. I kept being recommended to be let go, or I would have hours cut, and I was unable to secure any job that was fulfilling emotionally and financially that was understanding of my medical problems. And eventually, I just was in bed, stuck every single day, and I had no idea what to do, and I just had this moment of, why don't I write a book? I had heard of CreateSpace, which is what existed before KDP, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot. So I wrote my first book, and things quickly escalated, and now I'm a full-time author. So that is a very short and condensed version of how I got started as an author. And so a few years ago, I'm a full-time author. Things are going great. It's some of the best days of my career, a lot of firsts and a lot of really exciting things. And what had happened was there was a lot of theft. The more successful you are, the more people are going to try and steal your work and profit off of it. And this was also during pandemic times when it was this really big conversation of books are free to use, or books are free to educate with. And there was a big movement where a lot of authors were doing free incentives with their books. And there was also a lot of really great resources happening at that time. Unfortunately, a lot of people misunderstood how you can use books during that time. So it led to a lot of unlicensed theft. At this time as well, I was in one of the biggest deals of my life where I was being offered quite a hefty amount of money for this huge Fortune 100 company that wanted to buy the rights to my entire series. This licensing right would have required that I license it to no one else. They wanted to buy the exclusive rights for what they wanted to use it for. I was very excited about this. And so during that time, I was not licensing my book to anybody to use for story times in videos or in any sort of fashion that somebody might license the book for. So that's where I was at. And then there was this moment when I started getting all of these notifications. I was getting messages of people talking about me coming to their state and me doing this huge book tour. And while that sounds super fun, I wasn't doing a huge book tour and I wasn't coming to the states that these people were seeing me in. And I was getting very confused because I didn't know what was happening and how so many people were getting this misunderstanding that I was going to be doing a reading near them, that I was traveling around. And I started to look into this and I found news articles saying that I was coming to this organization or this place or this location. And I was reading my books and I was really confused, and I'm staring at these articles that had a picture of me, my face, on this news article. And I'm sitting here thinking, what is happening? Because this isn't real. So I was not sure what was happening, who these news articles were, and where they were getting their information from. And I was absolutely terrified and panicked because I knew a lot of people were counting on these events and people had messaged me about these events and I wasn't going to be there. So I really had a huge panic attack trying to figure out what was happening and tracking down this. Now, in all these articles, it kept mentioning an organization I never heard of. So I looked it up and it was a nonprofit organization with really great values, really beautiful mission, all of this wonderful stuff. And I was like, oh, they're awesome. So I was really confused of like, why are they using my face though? Why are they using my face and my name and advertising to all these places that I'm going to be reading my book? So the more I looked into it, the more I realized that this situation went from weird to really scary because they were actually using my book, not only, and my face and my name, not only to advertise these events, but they were charging a very large amount of money for these events. And this event was to hear the book be read. Now, if you are familiar with authorship laws, essentially you cannot charge to read a book. This is something to where I can't record myself reading a James Dashner book on YouTube because I would be taking revenue away from James Dashner's book sales, his ebooks, his audiobooks. So that's something that I wouldn't be able to do. If I wanted to do that, I would have to reach out to James and be like, hey, can I license your books? I'd pay him a fee, and then I would be able to do that if he approved that. So same thing for in person. I can't make a whole book tour based off of the Maze Runner series and go ahead and charge money for that, for selling books or reading books of an author that's not mine in a group that I don't own. And I'm using James Dashner because I love his books and he popped up in my Instagram feed first thing this morning and I can't stop thinking about rereading the Maze Runner series. So I ended up reaching out to this organization and I did initially send them a cease and desist letter. And I've talked about that before on my channel, but I essentially asked them, hey, please don't sell programs with my face on them, with my name on them, with a book. You're confusing people. And I let them know that they unfortunately aren't allowed to charge to read my book. I let them know that I really loved their organization and I really connected with all the points that they were hitting and educating people about with their own programming. And I let them know that I would be happy to talk about licensing rights. But remember, I was in a great big contract and I definitely was not allowed to grant any rights that would conflict with this upcoming deal. So I had to be very careful here. And since they were already using it, I did consult with my legal team and I was advised that it would be okay to back license them, to give them licensing rights and to approve this one thing, which I also had to reach out to this place that was offering me this huge deal and explain to them the situation that was happening and make sure that they were okay with me giving rights to this group who went around the rules and were using my book illegally. So that is something to where I did all this legwork and everybody understood, everybody was on board. I was kind of embarrassed talking to the people who I was in a contract with because I sounded like this young, naive indie author who couldn't even keep control of my rights. And I explained to them, I couldn't control this. This is a really strange off the wall situation, but they're a great organization and I'm sure it will be fine. So after the cease and desist, and I was like, hey, I can offer you back licensing rights. This is how much I charge for licensing. I'm happy to work with you. Let's figure something out. I seen that they had, 30 plus more readings scheduled. So I was like, you have so many more to go. You definitely need to get your licensing. That way it's all good to go. And I didn't get an immediate response, but I did see a video pop up on YouTube. And this video was of one of these readings, and it was showing the entire organization event. And this is where things started to get darker. So I'm watching this video and they announce, hey, here is Bethany Stahl, the author. She's here and she's reading her book. And that statement was never corrected by this organization. And out walks a 20-something brunette who is white presenting, who relatively looked like me. And I thought, oh no. Oh my gosh, I think my identity's being stolen. But I was like, surely I'm wrong. They're obviously gonna say that's not me. They're gonna correct the person who presented that as me. They're gonna say it's not me. My picture's in the back of the book. Like, they're gonna correct this, and they didn't. This person went on to read the book as if it were theirs, which was a little strange, I must say. And then things went from bad to worse. At the end of the book, they quickly shut the book before they mentioned the author page, which is something I really hope everybody does in person when reading my book, especially to a group, because reading my book to a group is like great for you, but one of the ways you can make it really great for an author is sharing about their other books, sharing about the author themselves, and really helping that group be introduced to this author that you love so much that you're reading their book. And they didn't do that. And that was unfortunate, especially since it was kind of scammy feeling. And I went on to watch it, and what was worse went to even more worse because this person answered questions about the book, which I felt was completely inappropriate because if we're using James Dashner as our example today, I would not be able to answer questions about how the world was built for the Maze Runner, where the ideas of certain things came from, how James writes in prose and what inspires him to write in the way he does. So that would not be something I'd be able to answer because obviously I'm not James. And I definitely know that nobody else would be able to answer things about the book with them not being me. So I was very confused when this group accepted author questions. They were asked about sea turtles laying eggs, and I had volunteered for a while to protect sea turtle eggs in the wild, going out, walking the beaches, making sure the eggs were protected, and being a part of that process. And I have such a deep personal connection to sea turtles, and this person said that sea turtles lay their eggs in the sea and that sometimes they might wash up on shore, but yes, sea turtles lay eggs in the sea. And one of the kids is like, wouldn't they float around? And the person's like, yeah, maybe. And this was the point where I was having another panic attack because sea turtles do not lay their eggs in the sea. I think a majority of us who are familiar with sea turtles know they lay the eggs on shore. Then the mother goes back to sea, and then the babies will hatch and then make their way to the sea. So they definitely just don't randomly pop out eggs that float around the ocean. That's so silly. And the questions went on, and I can promise you that 100% of the questions were answered incorrectly, did not use real science, and did not use actual information from the book. It was very misleading. It was a very bad misrepresentation of my series, of my work, and it was really disheartening because this is a wonderfully reputable organization who should be up on their science knowledge, and all of their science information was absolutely horrible. So before I emailed this organization concerned about the science they were presenting, I went ahead and messaged the people who posted this video, because unfortunately they're not allowed to post this video because it's in violation of the Digital Millennium Copyrights Act. I'm pretty sure that's the words for the acronym. I will put up the correct word down here even if I'm wrong. So it did violate that, so they had to remove the video. And again, this is a licensing rights issue because I was in a contract. So this is another person breaking this licensing rights contract. So I couldn't have this. I couldn't. So I let them know to take it down. They took it down, but they were very confused because they were telling me, I'm not sure who you are because Bethany Stahl gave us permission to post this. And I said, well, I'm Bethany Stahl, and I absolutely did not give you permission. And they were like, what? Why did you change your mind? And why did you charge us so much? Because when we talked about pricing, you said we could post this, and we fully intended on monetizing this video. And that's not what happened. I had a very long talk with them that unfortunately I was not there. I was not the one to read the book. I am not working with that organization. I was not paid. I did not take any of their money. And in fact, if it was something to where if this particular host, your organization asked me about licensing my book or reading my book, I would have been happy, and I wouldn't have charged them because they were a great organization too. And I like to be really friendly to organizations, especially ones that I know don't really have the budget for things like this. So I'm really flexible with licensing, and really, especially for like these great agencies out there that this group was targeting, I am very, very friendly toward, especially because I want to share the message of my books and I want to get them out. So I know it's a little bit of a bad business practice to not charge all the time, but I bend the rules as much as I can.
So upon gathering receipts for this video, I revisited one of the videos posted that violated copyright, and they added this statement. And this is my reaction in real time. I had full body convulsions because of how terrible this statement sounds. And I emailed them this, and that basically politely asked them to remove that statement since it was false. And I never, ever, ever requested payment from any of the organizations that paid this other nonprofit that was selling my book readings to them, and that never happened. And it really, really was overwhelming to see this statement out there about myself several years past this event that has dramatically changed my life for the worse.
So I let them know that, and then I reached back out to this organization and said, hey, here's an issue. You are presenting facts that are not right about the book. And I listed every single thing they did. And I might cut in here and insert some of the things that they were doing. I got a response to that email that was very, very, very awful. I don't even know if awful is the right word for it. It was one of, maybe, if not, I don't know. It was one of the worst emails I've ever received. And I was really shocked and disheartened, to say the least. The email was incredibly hurtful, and after a little bit of an email exchange between us, they basically insinuated that I was a horrible person, that I was money hungry, that I was not deserving to be an author, that my voice and my books didn't deserve to be heard, and that I was cruel and they hated me. And this was really sad to read, right? Because my whole thing is providing accessibility. If you are familiar with the channel, you'll likely know that there are free animated audiobooks of every single one of my books because I want my book to be accessed. I don't like paywalls. Paywalls are one of the grossest things. I know I have a Patreon page. The Patreon page is incredibly underpriced for the amount of work that goes into it. And I'm okay with that because I love supporting authors. I love giving access to readers. And I grew up incredibly disadvantaged to where I was not able to purchase books. I was not able to do these things. And one of the most hurtful moments of my life is I worked really hard to get a collection of books. And it was the series of unfortunate books. And I worked so hard to get them with these staggered pages on the end. They were like these collectible versions. And I was saving so much money. I was working, I was saving up during middle school and just really using all my money to buy the series of unfortunate events books because they were my absolute favorites. And I loved Lemony Snicket. I just loved the stories. I was totally fascinated and I felt like relatable to Violet in the books. And they were my favorite. And I collected all 13 and I had them in these beautiful staggered hardcover books. And it was one of my most prized possessions. And I had worked so hard to get them all. And there came a point in my life where I had to decide if I was going to eat that week or if I was going to keep these books. And I sold the books. And it was like the worst thing I ever did. I am so sad about it now. And I was sad for it then because it meant so much to me. I think that the series of unfortunate events played a huge part in inspiring me to be an author before I even knew that this was a career path. And it's something that I never, ever want any child or adult to go through. Nobody deserves to have to choose between eating or reading a book or keeping a book, which is why I heavily donate copies of my books to little free libraries all around. Whenever I do school reading, I donate copies to the library, and I am very, very adamant of giving accessibility. So when these people were talking about how I was this like horrible money hungry author and all of these really awful things to accuse me of, I was really heartbroken because that's the exact opposite of what I stand for. And I am really, really determined to do good on this planet and to do good for the planet, to do good for the people on this planet, for the animals, for the plants. And comments like that really, really hurt because it's like, no, wait, that's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do. And then I was like, I feel like I felt bad in a way, but then at the same time, I knew I was in the right. And it was really disheartening. During that period of time, I was incredibly financially strapped because I was trying to save for a surgery that my insurance wasn't covering. That's for my one of my chronic illnesses that I have, and would improve my quality of life. So I felt extra hurt by that because here I was like pinching pennies everywhere to save for the surgery. And this person is like, you're disgusting and you don't need the money and all of this stuff. And I'm like, actually, I really do right now. More than ever at that point. So it was really, really sad. Fast forwarding a bit in our conversations, I asked them if they could just go ahead and just pay the back licensing. And at this point, I wanted to prove my point more than anything that they owed an indie author money. And so I said that they could send me 1 cent. They could pay me 1 cent, and if that's all, that's what they could pay. Yet again, they hit me about finances, and they said they were a nonprofit, and they were not profiting off of my book. But just because you're a nonprofit, and trust me, I took an entire course on nonprofits because I wanted to open one. I studied this in college. So I know the legality of nonprofits, and just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean that nobody in the company is profiting. That doesn't mean that you're not profitable, right? And they were trying to be like, no, we're a nonprofit, we have zero profits. Well, the thing about nonprofits is they have to publish their profit and loss statements, and they have to show exactly what they're using their money for. So I went ahead and pulled up their finances because while they couldn't see my finances, I could see theirs. And I seen exactly how many thousands of dollars they were profiting from my book. And I let them know, I can see this. And I know you're making money from this. And I understand you're a nonprofit. I'm not asking for tons and tons of money. I'm asking you at this point to pay 1 cent to license the rights to use my book because you just can't do this. And I, at this point, was very determined to make this clear because I don't want any other indie authors to be hurt in the process. And I know indie authors are on the rise. Woohoo, we're cool. But I just know this was probably the first time this organization dealt with an indie author, and I wanted to make sure that I let them know that this was not okay. So when I confronted them about their finances and that I knew how much they were charging these organizations, because I called all the organizations and places they were selling readings to, and I asked them blatantly how much they charged. I asked them if Bethany Stahl was going to be there. They all said, yes, Bethany Stahl's coming. We paid X amount of dollars and she's going to read her book, Save the Ocean. I was like, okay, well, I'm just letting you know, I'm Bethany Stahl, I'm not coming, and you paid somebody who doesn't have the rights to my book, and any rights they grant you is not allowed because this organization was granting these other organizations media rights to my book. They were telling them they could publicize it, they could post videos of it. One of these organizations thought they were allowed to photocopy the book and hand it out at this event. No, you cannot make a copy of the book. So I was giving the organizations that were being scammed my free resources, and I was giving them a lot to be able to distribute things to the children that were coming in a legal way. So I was giving them the animated audiobooks. I sent them coloring book worksheets. I was doing as much as I possibly could to ease over the situation, because whether I liked it or not, this nonprofit was directly ruining my reputation as an author, and it was hurting me. And I was really worried about this. So this organization decided that they were not going to even pay me a penny, that I was being ridiculous, that they needed the money to pay for the people going to the reading, and they needed the money to pay their gas mileage in their car. And I explained to them very kindly, like, hey, I understand you have to pay your people, but do you understand that authors also need to get paid too? That while you're paying for your gas mileage there and you're paying an hourly fee for this person who's impersonating me, what also needs to happen is you need to pay the author whose work you're profiting from. And again, every time I said profit, it was this huge rage fest where they're like, we are a non-profit. And it was like, calm down. Like, we all know what's happening here. Why are you being like this? So at this point, I reached out to my legal team and I let them know everything. I shared all the emails. My legal team was very upset and they were like, you're 100% in the right. And like, they were glad that I was trying to make my point as little as a penny. I just wanted to get paid something just for the principle. And I was in the midst of sharing this with my legal team when this organization messaged me and let them know that if I message them again, that they are going to sue me. They have a wild team of lawyers that are very well established, and this was true, and that they would do everything they could to go after me. I look at my legal team and I'm like, what 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 do we do? Like, what do we do? I just got threatened by somebody who's stealing my work, stealing my face, stealing my identity, and they're saying they're going to come after me for what? And the my legal team said that essentially what was probably going to happen is they wanted to escalate this to a court scenario where they would play the victim, and they said that they would likely win, and all it would do is tie me up with legal fees, and it would harm me because even if I won, even if the legal system agreed with indie authors that we deserve to be paid too, what would happen in the meantime is the attorney is like, they're really latching on to this fact that you are like a money grubbing author, and they are going to destroy your reputation. This will be in the media. This will be something that you can't erase. And they were like, let it go. Just cut ties, let it go. And I did. I let it go, and I had to reach back out to this organization who I was in this wonderful licensing agreement with that would have honestly changed my entire life. It was that big of a deal. And I had to explain this whole situation to them. And it was so, like, I have goosebumps on my cheeks. It was so embarrassing to talk to these business professionals, like I said, at a huge, huge, huge company, and tell them that I basically had no control, and that this organization had successfully stolen my book, and that I apologized for breaking the contract, where I promised I wouldn't license it to anybody else. And yeah, while they were understanding I didn't get that deal, was that a factor to it? I don't know. I can't say that it was or wasn't, but it was a lot. And I was one of the first, if not the first, I think they said I was the first indie author they were going to work with. And that could have been a game-changing moment for me, for indie authors. And yeah, unfortunately, that didn't work out. And I went into a severe depression during all of this. I had been like getting incredibly sick, vomiting, crying, like panic attacks, because this went on for a very extended period of time where I just kept seeing my face being advertised. I had to keep calling people and telling them that they'd been, scammed, that they didn't buy licensing rights, that they weren't allowed to do what they thought they were paying for. And it was a lot, and it was really, really, really awful. At this point, I began to write the next book in the Save the Earth series, and I couldn't. Every time I tried, I felt sick. I couldn't write. I started having a panic attack because I just felt like I was writing the next book to be stolen, my next problem, my next issue. And I was so scared about that. So I haven't published a Save the Earth book since this incident. I haven't, because they really, really broke my soul about this. And I just felt so heartbroken. And I know most times when I'm faced with stuff like this, like I overcome and persevere, but this time was different. This time I truly felt like I was at the bottom. I was at my breaking point. Like, I have had so much more money stolen from me from illegal theft of my books. Like, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands in one hit that I've had stolen from me. But this one just hit different. I think because it was a nonprofit who normally I would absolutely align with. And I think too, because it was just my face. And that was the first time it wasn't just about my books. It was about stealing me. And I was horrified. It wasn't just about the book. It was about my reputation. It wasn't just about the book. It was about me as an individual, as a person on this planet. And that was terrifying to me. So after that, I went ahead and removed my face from everything. I removed my pictures from the back of the book. I replaced them with a cartoon. I removed my pictures on YouTube. I removed my videos with my face on YouTube. And I started using a cartoon instead because I didn't want anybody to steal my face ever again. And I was just so worried that somebody was just going to start something even worse with my face. And it was an absurd thing to happen. And I haven't wanted to talk about it because I haven't wanted to give it any power. But during that time where I wasn't publishing for the Save the Earth series, I decided to work on some other projects that weren't authorship, where I got to produce a little bit of stuff for something else. And then I also was writing my Diablerie trilogy, which is a YA fantasy novel. And I really, really love it. And during that time, I decided that I didn't even want my name associated because these people had made me feel like I couldn't even use my name, that my name was stolen. So I started working under a bunch of different pen names because I just felt so detached to my name. Like, I'm saying, like, this hit me really hard. Like, I felt like I didn't want to be Bethany Stahl anymore because that name had been stolen. That name had been tainted. I had done so much work to heal those wounds that this organization caused that I didn't want to be me anymore. So I published that book under the name CJ Sparrow, and I wasn't sure if I would ever claim my YA book. And it's something that I didn't even tell my audience about it. I've barely told this audience about it. And it's a book that during its launch, I was hitting it really hard. And then after the launch, I just like completely stopped trying with it. And I think I just felt really detached from my book, and I felt like I was scared to do interviews. I declined a bunch of interviews for it because I'm like, you're not allowed to use my face. I'm not doing anything on camera. And I really sabotaged the launch of that book, which was really unfortunate because it had rave reviews. It has really, really good reviews that I am absolutely stunned by because it's my first novel ever. And I just, I really dropped the ball. So this vlogging series is going to be the real look of authorship, and I'm not perfect. I know I give a ton of advice. Luckily, things have worked out overall to a benefit, but I definitely make some mistakes along the way. So hopefully this will be a fun way to connect with you and to talk about authorship in a very real and unfiltered way. So I really appreciate your support. If you like videos like this, please click that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, and also leave a comment. So the algorithm favors videos like that. So the more you engage, the more it boosts this video. So I really appreciate your support. And of course, if you want some author help or advice or behind the scenes looks, that's all available on patreon.com/Bethany Stahl. That's where you're going to find all of those really great resources and an example of a cease and desist letter. And while I can't provide legal advice, it is a good tool to get a starting point. And recently over on Patreon, we've been talking about bail teams, which if you don't know about them, join Patreon and learn about them. And then of course, if you want to read my books, the Save the Earth series is available online, as well as the Diablerie trilogy. It's still publishing. And thank you all for listening and being here. And I just hope that if you're dealing with something similar, I really hope it doesn't get you discouraged. I know sometimes, especially for me, I feel like authorship can get really, really lonely because it's a weird career that not a lot of people do. But that's what this channel is for, so we can connect. That's what the Patreon community is for. There's a community chat in there where you can chat with other authors and we can all connect and make this community a little bit less lonely and be here for each other when things like this happen. So I hope you have a great day, and I will chat with you soon.